Well, Razorback fans, it certainly seems like Ryan Silverfield's staff is starting to come together. What do we make of it so far? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, as we'll have plenty of things to talk about here today, especially getting into Razorback football and the staff additions, as well as college football just being a mess right now. Razorback basketball gets a big win, but just how good are they? I was trying to bring up that and dive into that a little bit, but wanted to begin today and talking about some things that transpired since the last time we had a chance to catch up when it comes to the Razorback coaching staff. Now, I want to be clear, none of this has been announced by the University of Arkansas per se, but they are having national reports, and some of them are confirmed as far as from the people or the coaches involved or whatever it may be. But we're starting to get a better idea of how it's all kind of coming into play. And it started happening with, of course, we know about offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. What are those going to look like? Because that's the thing that everybody's going to be zeroing in on and trying to figure out, okay, so what's the offense and what status is that going to be? And then also same thing with the defense. Well, this is according to Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports. There's other ones that confirmed it too with On3 and everything, which for offensive coordinator Tim Cramsey, who was the offensive coordinator over with Ryan Silverfield at Memphis, is going to be joining him with the same position. He's one of the big reasons why the offense was so successful over there at Memphis, and also wide receivers coach Larry Smith will be joining Ryan Silverfield over from Memphis. So they both were there for several years, since 2022, essentially. And this was the kind of the stat that I think everybody is most interested in, is that the Memphis Tigers had a top 25 scoring offense in all 4 years that Tim Cramsey was there at Memphis. They averaged 36.3 points a game and 436.3 yards per game. So really, really nicely done there. I mean, it's like no surprises, no like, oh geez, man, why would you hire this guy? Why would he be this guy? I think everyone kind of had a hunch that it was going to be what was brought over from Memphis, because also, let's be honest, when you're talking about the team and talking about trying to, harness from the best parts of the Memphis tenure that Ryan Silverfield had, the offense was definitely part of it. And since it was consistent with success, all of that makes sense. We know that also David Johnson will be joining as the running backs coach. Now, that is a particular coach that is not from the Memphis regime. He's actually been most recently at Florida State. A lot of connections into the state of Louisiana, something I noticed by a few of these coaches, especially on the offensive side. But David Johnson, who's been the running backs coach and recruiting coordinator since 2020, he's been with Florida State. He had 19 all-conference performers who have combined and earned 29 all-conference recognitions, and has done a really good job in the recruiting landscape. I know that Florida State struggled this past year, but he was also part of that team that went 13-0 in the regular season and, kind of left out of the playoffs, which was always controversial. But they led the ACC that year with 61 total touchdowns, 32 rushing touchdowns, and an average of 13.5 yards per completion, while the fewest interceptions and total turnovers. So he was very integral and part of the offense. But from my understanding, when it comes to David Johnson, he's going to be not only just the running backs coach, but a really huge hand in recruiting. That includes high school side of things as well as transfer portal. He's going to be involved in all of that. So again, not surprising, not anything that's like, oh man, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. I mean, you're getting some guys with experience, and David Johnson's one of those guys that has SEC experience, which is extremely crucial when it comes to hiring the staff. Now, here's the deal. Like we'll move to the defense here in just a second, but that basically leads open the tight ends coach and offensive line coach on the offensive side, because you have running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks coach / offense coordinator. And it came out yesterday that Eric Mateos will not be he will not be retained as offensive line coach. That was something that maybe was a possibility. I know that he was wanting to stay on, but given the circumstances of Ryan Silverfield having an offensive line coaching history himself, I'm sure that there is a particular style or scheme or however they want to do it. And unfortunately, it was just not something that they wanted to keep on. They were going to move on from that. So, and I say all that because there's a lot of coaches that are moving on. Obviously, we talked about the Petrino thing and his coaches and all that. But Eric Mateos was just, I thought he was great. I thought he did a great job at Arkansas. And I know that him and Sam Pittman had a long connection. And you look at the stats and everything of Arkansas's offensive line, they vastly improved. So I was really hopeful that he was going to stay on. But at the same time, I understand that, hey, if you have a new head coach that walks in, he wants it done his way and he needs to hire his guys that he wants. And I think he should get that freedom. But I think Coach Mateos is going to have plenty of opportunities elsewhere. So appreciate him. He's a true Razorback, man. He was here in 2015, during the Brett Bielema era, really where he got his start in the coaching side of things at the college ranks and did a good job with Arkansas. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities. So I wish him nothing but the best of luck. Morgan Turner, on the other hand, it looks to be, at least that seems to be the reports, that he's going to be staying on as tight end coach. It's not very uncommon to see position coaches or particular coaches stay on in certain capacities. And he's definitely one of those that it kind of makes sense, like the tight ends under Morgan Turner. People bring up, oh, well, what about this guy? What about this guy? You never had to worry about talent. Like Luke Hasz and Ty Washington were some of the guys that are like, well, what about those two? It's like, well, they're highly talented guys. It's just Luke Hasz has had injury issues. And I know Ty Washington had some issues with whether it was the staff or whether it was the program or whatever it was. But there certainly seemed to be talent there. And this past year, Rohan Jones was incredible. I think Jaden Platt's a fantastic blocking tight end. Andreas Poski, say what you want about him, but when he was healthy, he could do some things. So the point is, I think it's a good thing to keep Morgan Turner on. I think he's, depending on what this offense is going to look like when it comes to the tight end position, how are they going to approach it? How are they going to deal with it? Time will tell. But I like it. I like how they're at least keeping some guy on. Now, the defense is where it gets interesting because as at this point in time at the recording of this podcast, we really only know of one coaching hire, and that is simply Ron Roberts. He is the guy that was from Florida. He was the defense coordinator there. He's been the defense coordinator at Auburn and has a ton, and I mean a ton, of SEC experience. He was the six years as a defense coordinator or co-defense coordinator or linebacker coach at Florida, Auburn, and Baylor. So that's what has been in the past 6 years. He's been at major colleges. Now, you could sit there and argue about, what about those schools? What about those talents? What about those teams that he was on? Okay, whatever. But, it comes down to about scheme, and he has on all those teams, they allowed 24 points a game and 368 yards per game. And then he had some other places too, based in Louisiana, once again, because he was at Delta State, Southeastern Louisiana, and Louisiana. So another guy that has a lot of strong connections there. I talked to a few people, not only with, who know a little bit about Ron Roberts, but also from Florida and from Auburn. And what it seemed like is I was just asking these guys that it's like Locked On Auburn host, Zach Blackerby, and Locked On Gators host, Brandon Olson. Both of them said very high things, like very complimentary things of the type of scheme and the type of game planning that he does. The one thing, though, that may be, you want to call it a red flag or maybe one thing that wasn't really as high is recruiting. And that's not really been his thing. He's a great defensive mind, but is he a great recruiter? May yet to be determined. I'm not trying to make the Bobby Petrino comparison, but I'm just saying he seems to be the guy that, understands the X's and O's football side and then has had to rely on others involved when it comes to the recruiting. So, again, we may see who gets added to the defensive staff. We don't know about D-line or linebacker or safeties or cornerbacks, anything like that. But what we do know is that he is a guy who has plenty of experience, who has been in this league, been in the SEC, been at different places. And from what it looks like, at least, it's going to be in full control of the defense. And I think having Quincy Rhodes back for another season is a really good start to how it could all play out for Arkansas here in this one as well. So kind of laid it out there. And the next thing, though, and I guess maybe not as one that gets talked about as much, Scott Fountain was not retained. He's moving on. But Chad Lunsford is going to be the special teams coach, according to Brandon Marcello and others. Now, that may not mean anything to you, but I actually have a story with Coach Chad Lunsford. He was the head coach at Georgia Southern when Arkansas played him in football back in 2022, I believe was the year, 2021 or 2022. And he was the head coach. And sometimes when I was doing my radio show, I would always try to reach out and see if I could maybe get the head coach on, especially of smaller schools, because I know I can't get, SEC schools, but hey, it's worth a shot when it comes to those. And he did it. And he was awesome. He was extremely complimentary of Arkansas. He stayed in contact. He followed me on Twitter and was, hey, man, anything you need, let me know, and all of that. Like, really a great guy and nice guy, and a guy that, really seemed to have a passion for what he does. And then on top of that, Arkansas played Georgia Southern. Arkansas won pretty handily, but then like the next week he was let go. So kind of unfortunate timing. But the point is that he's a guy that I've kind of followed a little bit, and to see him kind of coming into this role, I think is a really great one, because I felt like, could be completely wrong about this, but I've always felt like the best type of special teams coaches are the ones that have head coaching experience. And I'm not just saying that because of the John L. Smith thing. It's like special teams, there is a lot of elements to it, just like anything else. You got the punt return, kick return, punt, kick. You got the onside kicks. You got the, each and everything you could possibly think of. You got to have things in place to make it work. And so I think that I'm really excited about him. And it's good to have somebody with a connection, good to have somebody that is familiar, and I think he'll do a great job there. So that's where it's at. Now, you're probably like, okay, so what does all this mean? What does all this mean? Well, here's what it's going to come down to, folks, is because we were hearing from Hunter Yurachek and also Ryan Silverfield in the press conference last week when the question was asked to Hunter Yurachek, how are you going to know how much money is there? How much money has been reinvested or invested into the program that's going to blow people away? And it came down to coaching staff, and it came down to transfer portal. Now, is this coaching staff ones that's just like, oh my goodness, over the moon, like cannot believe they got these guys, like kind of like what Brett Bielema's staff was the first year he was at Arkansas? No. But am I sitting here saying that, oh man, this is just a bunch of has-beens, Chad Morris type stuff? No. Like I think that there's some really positive qualities of the ones they've hired, and they haven't even completed the entire hiring process yet. So I like it. I like the SEC experience. I like that the approach that they're making. I like the fact that it seems to be something that they're trying to make sense out of, but also sticking with what works, but also trying to stay regional when it comes to recruiting too, in the Louisiana areas, as well as Bama and Mississippi. So I like it so far. Again, is it going to blow me away? Not yet. At least it hasn't. But can it work? Can it be serviceable? Sure it can. It's going to come down to recruiting, though, and that transfer portal. That's really what it's going to come all down to. We're going to talk some Razorback basketball. How good is this team actually? It's hard to tell right now, but we'll talk about it. Stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, we know the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. And then, let's be honest, getting tickets is always the hardest part. But that's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging those seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when your seats are open, and buy tickets the moment that they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and see all the seat views and whatnot that you pick a game, you tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within a few minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print, nothing like that. The seat view feature is a game changer, and you literally get to see what the pitch looks like from the exact seat that you buy it from. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets, every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So Arkansas basketball played down there in North Little Rock against Fresno State, and the final score was a nice one. 82-58. Arkansas took care of business in this one. First half was pretty rough, just going to be honest. First half was not ideal, just to be honest, from it all. Arkansas only had a 10-point lead, and I say only because they also had some other things that they had to handle in that. But overall, it's like, again, it's not like the end of the world or anything like that. It's just something that needed some help. But Arkansas, it's about the performances that they have. Darius Acuff looked good. You had, with his 7 of 12, 18 points, 8 assists, 1 turnover, like all those things, that's big time. And that's really where kind of this Arkansas team kind of comes into play, where you have multiple guys that can do some things. Malik Thomas had a good performance. You had Trevor Brazile get it going a little bit too. Billy Richmond, who gets ejected because of an elbow, which was dumb on his part. But, it's not like he has to sit out for the next game because that's going to be Texas Tech. But listen, we can sit here and dive into the game and like what looked good and who didn't look good and all of that. You did what you're supposed to do. You came out with your hair on fire in the second half. And, it's just amazing how this team can, when they're playing the way that they should be, or at least as good as they can be, they look like one of the better teams in the country. But then there's times where it's just like, okay, so how good are they? Like how good are they? And it's this balancing act that we're going through. Beating that Louisville team really sparked something, I think, in the team to start giving them the confidence because they desperately needed it and needed to have the atmosphere, needed to have the energy, needed to have all those things. And it certainly helped them. But what's the next step? Like how do we know compared to the rest of the college basketball landscape? Well, I can tell you this as far as from the SEC perspective, I still think that they're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the SEC right now. I think Alabama's really good. I think, Tennessee is always going to be solid. But like Florida, they're really good. Don't get me wrong, but lost a few games here. Auburn got the break speed off of them against Arizona over the weekend. I mean, like 30 spotted. So it's like, how good are they going to be? And, it's a real shame to see what's happening to Kentucky. Sheesh, man, like they got booed off the court. Their fans booed them off the court there in Nashville because of their performance against Gonzaga. And it ain't looking too swell over there in Lexington and Big Blue Nation. So either way, it's a matter of perspective. Like I could sit here and dissect the Arkansas team and get frustrated by a few things here and there, and get annoyed by some of the slow starts or some of the things that just bother me. But then when you start putting it again in the perspective of where you stand among all these other teams, it's not that bad. In fact, Arkansas is doing a good job. And I think that this whole week that they're going to have off before their next game against Texas Tech down in Dallas, which I'm going to be at, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they come out. And if they go out and they beat Texas Tech for the rematch, from last year's NCAA tournament game, I think people are really going to start buying in. And Arkansas could jump up into that range of, top 15, maybe even flirt with the top 10, depending on what the rest goes on. Now, you'll still have Houston coming up. You have a couple of buy-me games there before non-conference ends, and then SEC play starts up. So I like where the team's at. There's just a few things. Like one, the altercations that the team is getting into. I'm not going to sit here and just be like, there's no room for any of this. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But it is one of those things that can be a little bit nerve-wracking because you're like, okay, so what if teams are watching this film and they're seeing Arkansas get rattled by these simple things, and then they're going to start getting antagonized, and people are just going to start punching them and be like, hey, gonna hit me? You gonna hit me? And then it's going to end up costing them. Because, you think about it, like, Billy Richmond got ejected. It was a dumb thing that he did, but, there's talking and whatnot. But it's like, it's him. And then, Brazile, of course, he always gets into it a little bit. It's just his personality, what comes along with it. We've seen Carter Knox get into it with a few players. Nick Pringle, almost went fisticuffs. One of those, which, again, I like the fight. I do. I really do. But I'm just worried that at some point in time, people are going to start catching on. Like, hey, this team, man, if you poke them enough, they're gonna snap. They're gonna make a mistake. They're gonna play too hard. They're gonna have a hard foul here and maybe get ejected or something like that. And then they're going to just keep poking the bear more so than they normally would. That's my only concern. But still, I like the fight. I like that they're not backing down. And I don't like the fact that they're going to give it to whoever comes at them a little bit. So I like that. I like the scoring. I like the fact that they have explosiveness and they have athleticism. I like the fact that their defense is really starting to improve. It's not perfect, but considering where it was just a couple of weeks ago to where it's at now, drastically improved. So I'm really liking that. And, all the things surrounding it. So the point is, this team's really good. This team's really good. Have we seen the best of this team yet? No. But I still really am starting to get excited about the possibilities. And again, if you beat Texas Tech this weekend, shoe buddy, things are going to really start popping off and really start believing. So time will tell, though. Time will tell. Well, I tell you what, college football certainly seems ruined right now. I'm going to tell you why. Stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, the holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well, finding the gifts that people actually love. And when you want both handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save in a huge way, 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. It's very easy to give. It shows up frozen, packed beautifully, ready to cook. And steaks are perfectly aged and insanely tender, and it's restaurant level at home. Holiday magic made easy. Order by 6 p.m. Eastern time, and it ships the next day. So save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code COLLEGE. Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Okay, folks, we know what the college football playoff is looking like right now and which teams are in it. You got 5 SEC teams. You got, people arguing and complaining about it. Somebody get left out. What does it look like? And there's no doubt that the process is bad. I think that we need to get rid of the weekly rankings. I know that's about TV and everything, but it's dumb. They're just making it up as they go. I think that the rankings should just not matter until the day of. Like, no, don't do rankings. Don't do any of that stuff. Just once all the games are concluded from conference championships on, sit down, do the top 12, and knock it out. Let's do it. It just needs to be done that way. But it caused some problems and controversy like we all knew it would. Like, you got James Madison getting in, and you got like Oklahoma and Alabama rematching. You got Tulane and Ole Miss rematching, things like that. But, I didn't see any major issues. But what's caused a lot of this is now you're starting to see teams bow out of bowls. Like Notre Dame, a bunch of pansies and losers are bowing out of a bowl game just because they didn't get to go to the playoff, and they're crying about it. These are reasons why everyone hates Notre Dame, because of things like that. It's like, oh, we didn't get to go to the playoffs, so therefore we're just going to throw a fit, and we're just moving on to next year. Okay. And then you have other teams too that are not going to bowl games. Many other teams that were eligible to go to bowl games but are opting out, which is crazy because in some cases that I've seen, when they opt out of bowl games, they get fined by conferences. And I've seen, I think it was Kansas State maybe, got fined $500,000 to not go to a bowl game. And it's like, listen, I get it because bowl games have become meaningless. I've talked about that. But is it worth being fined $500,000 to not go? Is it worth all of that? I certainly don't think so. But there's no doubt that there's got to be a lot of change. Like people, when they get to signing day and transfer portal stuff and people, jumping out and everything, it's like the bowls don't mean as much. And apparently a lot of the bowl officials, according to Brett McMurphy, are basically saying this is the end of bowl games. And it sucks because I understand the meaninglessness of them, but I also enjoyed them. It's not like I sat there and be like, oh man, if Arkansas wins this Liberty Bowl, it's going to be the make or break for the season. No, but it was still fun. It's still fun to see you play random teams that you don't know to play and all of that. But it certainly seems like this is the death nail. And it'll be interesting to see if there's any bowls transpiring. Who knows? At this rate, with people bowing out, Arkansas may actually play in a bowl game this year. Time will tell. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's just a whole broken system that continues to be bad all around. And I think like the frustrating thing is that like Notre Dame, for instance, it's like you're not like you're going to some meaningless bowl game. Like you're still going to go to a New Year's Six bowl. Like you're going to go to a really good game, but you're just saying no. And to me, that's a problem. But I guess when you're your own conference, and this is the thing that's problematic, is just there's too many people that have too much power, and it's just spread so thin that everybody can just kind of do whatever they want, and there's no say in it. There's no regards to it or anything like that. And I hate it. I truly hate it. I hope it gets fixed. But as I've said before, this is probably a stupid idea and it probably won't work. But I've always felt like, hey, why don't you just do bowl games as spring games? Everybody plays a red-white game or a spring game against their own teams. Well, how about you do bowl games then? Like say if Arkansas was going to the Liberty Bowl and playing Oklahoma State, just randomly. Say if they're doing that. Well, do it in the spring. Do it in mid-April when the spring rosters are there and finalized. You got the new coach that's gone through all those practices. It's gone through all those scrimmages. And you're going to play a scrimmage no matter what. So might as well play it against somebody else and get your experience in and everything and go along with it. I don't know if that would be easy to do, but I would sure be interested, and a lot more interested in seeing a scrimmage between Arkansas and Oklahoma State and Memphis at the Liberty Bowl in mid-April than I would be watching a spring game between Arkansas's 1s and 2s in the red and white, personally. Again, I don't know if that would be something that's even acceptable, but I'm just trying to find ways to make it still work. People can still have their games and it all work out. But I think I'm just a lost battle here. That's for sure. But I still think something needs to change. There's no doubt about it. Either way, appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter, John Nabors Show. For any questions, comments, concerns you may have, keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.